Hey everyone, and welcome to another Marks & Crafts review. Today I'll be looking at Gaogaigar from the series King of the Braves Gaogaigar. Now, I have absolutely no history with the franchise at all. I just know Gaogaigar is a pretty old school combining mecha, and if there's two things that I love, it's Bandai model kits and combining mecha. So this was pretty much a match made in heaven. Now, I find what they've been doing lately with the RG line is very interesting. The stuff that they've been doing with Gundam lately has been very cool, with the God Gundam. The Eva real grade kits have been cool, but they are a bit samey, so I am glad to see something very unique, which is Gaogaigar. Not only is it a model kit that you build, a different franchise altogether from Gundam or Eva, it's also a model kit that you build and combine, which is very interesting, especially because real grade is fairly small scale and highly articulated. So we'll be taking a better look at that in just a moment. So once you've built everything up, this is what you're left with, which is the Geiger figure, the Drill Gao, Liner Gao, and Stealth Gao, as well as a few accessories for the Gaogaigar mode, as well as a few accessories for the other kits, base adapters, things that are required for different combinations. Unfortunately, there is a very tiny bit of parts forming in the actual combination, but for the most part, it's fairly okay. Now, other things that come included in this are a sheet of sticker-style decals for the Gaogaigar, which is pretty standard for all RGs. Unfortunately, they are very hard to apply and they don't leave the best sort of mark on the figure itself, because granted a lot of this is white, so it would be fine on the Geiger, but when you put these sticker style decals on black surfaces, they tend to leave pretty ugly lines where the sticker starts and ends. So I'm not really going to use them unless they release like a water slide decal set, which will apply much cleaner and look so much better. You also get these. This is a sheet of 3D plastic stickers. Now, these have been used a little more regularly in Bandai kits lately, and they are very, very cool. I've used all of them. They are for the windows on Liner Gao. And basically they're much thicker than standard stickers, and they stick much more cleanly, much better, much more solidly. Like, the glue is fantastic on them. Just let it focus. So all of that shining window, including the tiny little bit there, those are all these 3D jewel type stickers, and they are amazing. But other than that, this is everything that you get inside the box. Now, I don't really know the terminology, so I apologize if I've got anything wrong, but we'll be looking at all the accessories separately, not any of the base adapters or anything like that in this review, because I don't have an action base that can support it on hand. So we'll be looking at the more important accessories that will actually combine with the kit. Now, setting aside all the combining and accessories for a minute, we've got, I believe he's just called Geiger, and this is the main body of Gaogaigar, and pretty much everything relies solely on the shoulders of this kit, and everything holding up perfectly with him over time. Now, this is basically a real grade figure in its own right. It is incredibly articulated, very well detailed. The only thing I don't like is the face, and I don't know if it's accurate to the show or not, but I really just think it looks goofy. It's just like the mouth is too close to the chin. It just looks funny. Anyway, before we get into any articulation or anything like that, I'll do a quick size comparison of him in the robot mode. So here he is next to the HG Grimoire Gundam, which basically shows that the standard Geiger that is inside Gaogaigar is the same size as any other real grade, so it's the standard 1/144 Gundam size. Here they are next to my WCF Robin from One Piece. I just really like the figure. It's a nice one to show scale. And we will be looking at size comparison again for the rest of this. Now, before we go any further, I think it's important to mention that this figure actually transforms. And I think it's sort of like Super Sentai style things where each of the vehicles transform and does different things in its own right, and each one has a sort of theme. So I believe Geiger's is lion themed. I'm guessing because of the chest. Again, I don't know anything about this, but I do know that this can transform. So let's get into that right now. Before starting the transformation, make sure he's all sort of straightened out. It makes things just a little bit easier. So first off, pull out the arms on this hinge, spin the figure around, flick down this piece here, and that will unlock the head so you can push it in. And this should also push the lion head around. Next, you can twist the lion head down to cover up where the other head was. You can flick that back up. I got a little bit aggressive there. And you can close the mane. You can also flock this bit up to give the mane a little more of a presence. Flick these arms back up, turn them down, flick them up, turn them down. Now you can put the claws over the hands, and you can also spin the arms, spin the hands again, and that will give you some articulation in the lion mode. Next, we spin the waist, bend the knees, bend this little hinge, bend the knees, bend that hinge, and we are almost done. Next, you want to lift the middle of the skirt, pull out that, and hinge it one more time, and you have a tail and a completed lion mode. Now the lion mode is kind of cool but also kind of goofy. I don't know how accurate it is to the source material, but from my understanding it's pretty accurate to the Soul of Chogokin figure, which I think is pretty accurate to the show as far as I know. And it's basically just the robot mode, just lying backwards pretty much. It's kind of weird. The mouth does open, which is cool, which is also part of the Gaogaigar mode. Thanks to the rotation of the lion head to cover the head, you do get a bit of a swivel here. There is some articulation on the arms, but that's carried over from the actual robot, which I know I haven't done proper articulation of any just yet. The arms can butterfly out. You can just make it, you can break the sculpt and make it look so weird so easily. But yeah, it's just kind of cool that you can get a transformer like this and you build it, which is even better. I think that I'm ready to forgive a lot of things for how weird designs look because it transforms. But generally the colors are nice. The white is broken up a bit more by the lion head, covering a little more surface area. And because it's compressed a bit more, the colors pop a bit better. You get to see the back skirts that break up the white even more. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll just transform it back and continue. Now that we've got Geiger back, let's quickly go through the articulation because this will be important later for the Gaogaigar. Now, the arms can move out that far. This bit splits, which is good. The arm can hinge that far, so you can get quite a bit out of that. The wrists can swivel as well. They're on a ball joint, but it's hard because of the claw behind it. The hands can swivel. They're on a ball joint as well. There are additional hands to swap to. Just one pair of closed fists and open hands. Nothing too crazy because there are no accessories for it to hold. The legs can move up that far and to the side. If you're just doing a standard split, you can also get quite a bit out of it as well. Now the knees can move forward as well as fully back because you need it for the line mode as well as something else. The knees can also, the leg can also compress, which is what needed for the transformation. The foot can move side to side just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. The waists can spin, which we saw in the transformation. There is a hinge joint inside, which allows for a bit of an ab crunch. I think you can move that out of the side. No, that doesn't get you anymore. The arms can rotate all the way around. A lot of things move because of the transformation, and it's a little bit annoying, but yeah. And there is a ball joint at the head. I don't like touching the head too much. We'll get into that later as well. But generally, pretty cool figure. Ooh. Just sometimes you need to be careful with it. But yeah, generally I don't mind it. It's pretty cool. It's got its problems, but generally when it's in this base mode, I don't really have an issue with it. Just beyond, it's really hard to get him to just stand up normally, and that's just because the feet aren't actually that big. But yeah, we'll put him to the side and start looking at the other extension parts. So this is Liner Gao, and it is a Shinkansen train. It has no articulation, at least not like this. And yeah, it's just a train. It has little wheels that move when you're assembling it, but don't move afterwards. So yeah, it's just yay, woo. But if this is in scale, man, Geigar's massive. So yeah, that's Liner Gao. He's the easiest one to talk about. Next is Drill Gao, and these are probably the most obvious parts that are not actually drills. Like, at least the Shinkansen looks like a train, and the Stealth Gao looks like a bomber. But the drill, it looks like legs. Like, it's got drills at the front, and there's little cockpits, which is cool. But like these are definitely feet. Look at that. That's not even hiding it. Like, it's literally one step away from being legs. It's kind of a joke. But I think that that's accurate to the show. So yeah, that's cool. But building it is absolutely amazing, because these are actual treads that actually move. You have to assemble it. The engineering on this was so cool. I loved it. That was amazing. That was actually a highlight of the entire kit. I was dreading making it. I thought it would be really annoying, but it's actually really, really cool. But yeah, that's just Drill Gao. And there are a bunch of marking stickers and things to put on it if you want. The only ones that I put on were these little silver ones. On Geiger, the only ones I used were the eyes, and they don't sit that well on him, which is a shame, but is pretty consistent among real grades and HGs for eyes. It's better to paint them if you can. Last up is Stealth Gao, and this is a stealth bomber, and looks pretty cool from the top. The plastic is very easy to mark with like fingerprints and things like that, which sucks, but it is a nice sort of like slight gloss, mostly matte finish. The cockpit in there is nice as well and reflects the light really, really well. You've got these two little jet engines here. I lost a piece on my kit, and I can't find it, so I fashioned a new one of these little yellow bulb things. I bet you didn't even notice until I pointed it out. Ignore the rattling, that's part of the transformation. On the back, it doesn't gel as well with the other things, just because of these two massive bits hanging out, but everything else tucks away beautifully, and the engineering on this piece is fantastic as well. And we'll be getting into it. Now, before we do the major combination, which is the whole reason why you're probably watching this video, we'll do the mini combinations, because they're kind of stupid, but I love them. They're probably something relevant to the original show and things like that. It's weird. It sort of has nostalgia for something I never even watched. Anyway, you want to grab Stealth Gao, grab this little adapter piece and plug it into here. Next, grab Liner Gao and just line up the little seam here with the seam in the middle of Liner Gao, and boom, you've got Stealth Gao and Liner Gao combined. This is a legitimate combination. This is ridiculous. I love it. It's so stupid. It serves no purpose at all. Grab Stealth Gao, make sure these line parts, or these parts are out of the way. Then grab Geiger, flip out the back bits, flip down these bits, and you want to just plug the back onto him, if I can get it lined up. There we go. And so that just plugs into the same plug on Stealth Gao as that adapter piece for Liner Gao plugs on. And yeah, it gives him a cool little back silhouette backpack. And I think it's for him to like enter fights or things like that. There is an adapter piece, I think it's this one, that slots into the back here, and it lets you do flight poses and things like that, which is really cool. There's also some cool vent detail and things like that on Stealth Gao as well. These vents can actually move, which is very, very cool. So yeah, that's not a bad combination at all. It actually sits pretty solidly. I like that. Next up is the last of the mini combinations, and believe it or not, it involves these not being legs. So basically split them apart because they basically want to already. It's not a very strong connection. And grab one of the sides, go underneath the foot here, and you'll see this little tab. Flick it out, go over to Geigar's arm, and you basically want to click this onto the wrist. And then it should pull over the arm. And I think I put the wrong one on the wrong arm. So I just put that over the hand. All of these combinations have to be done with Geigar's just standard fists, which makes sense. And there we have Geigar with Zhilgao just attached to his arms, and they are very heavy. I would not recommend posing him with these, even though he can technically hold them up, but he will topple over immediately. But there is another adapter piece to slot under Geigar, so then he can do aerial poses. And you can also combine him with Stealth Gao while he's like this to do another sort of combination. And it's the same one that we did before. I did it separately just because the instructions show them as two completely different, well, three completely different combinations. But yeah, there he is. Look at him. It's a bit of a mess. He feels really heavy. Like the weight distribution is all over the place on this guy. But yeah, he just wants to topple. I don't blame him. Anyway, let's get to the main event. Now that you've got everything ready, it's time to do the final combination. Now, an important part to note about this combination part is that there is a little clip where the knee meets the drill. This is part of the secure combination part, and it is incredibly hard to get it to click in properly. As you can see, I just shoved it in, and unfortunately it does affect the articulation if you don't get it just right. So it's really hard. You need to hear a really satisfying click, but it's very easy to bend both parts of the knee by mistake and not get it to combine correctly, which sucks. I was able to get one of the knees on before, but not the other, and so I'm just going to leave it like this for now, but just know that he's not fully combined. Now, once you've done all that incredibly annoying transformation, it's much harder on camera than it is off camera, but it's still not the best off camera. It's just like it all combines quite solidly. It's just a little bit fiddly and it can be very awkward. But the most annoying part is the head. Now, there are two separate parts. This mask, which, if it can focus, this mask and the head itself. Now, the instructions recommend you combine the mask with the helmet, which I did before, but this connection is not secure in any way. And to actually combine it, what they want you to do is to place the head, well, place the mask on the head, like so. Ooh, it is a very tiny part and I'm reaching over the camera. Come on. This took me like half an hour to do. No, screw it. Basically, what I did to make it work is put part of the head on and turn this hinge that starts to close the helmet over the head, and then work the mask into that crevice so it will click into place, because the mask is meant to click on but doesn't really, and it's just so frustrating. Anyway. And if you've done everything correctly, it should look a little bit like that, except the legs would be more secure. Okay, and once you've done all that, the Gaogaigar mode is complete. It is just a pain in the ass to do, and you are left with these two parts that don't go anywhere, which sucks, because everything else was so clean. Anyway, aesthetics on this guy. He is definitely all of the elements of the vehicles combined into one. He's got the massive stealth bomber silhouette on his back, he's got the train through the middle, the lion head, which is now flocked out, which is really cool, new head, which I wish was a whole new head and not just the eyes from the previous model, because the eyes on that one are a bit weird. The legs for the drill, the jets for the stealth Gao, it's just very cool. And articulation has changed significantly because it is basically a whole new kit. The only things that are similar are the actual core of the figure, because that's the only thing that's the same. The arms are completely new, and the knees are kind of the same. They're very different if you did lock them in, which before, like I showed you, I can't do. Or at least not that I can't do it easily. But, so we'll go over arms first. So, the arms, oh my goodness. Oh, the mask. That's bullcrap. Where were we? So the arm can move up this far, and the actual joint from the train gives you quite an interesting hinge. But those are meant to be more shoulder pads. So it can move, it can twist, it can bend, but due to the transformation, you can get even more of a hinge out from the back of the engine, which is very, very cool. Next are the fully articulated fingers, and this is the other really annoying point of this figure, besides the mask. And besides this little chin part of the line, you can just glue that in, sometimes it falls out. But the fully articulated fingers, amazing concept, but they are a nightmare. Because it all comes down to the scale of the figure. And you need to be careful with these, otherwise they'll all pop out, or different parts of the hand will fall apart. It's very annoying. And so while I love the theory of having these fully articulated hands, it is just a nightmare to deal with it at this scale, and so easy to mess them up, which sucks. Because the sculpt is actually amazing on these hands, they are fantastic. But you do get an alternate set of hands for a special move, which I'm glad you don't need to pull off yourself. But that's enough about the hands. The waist's skirts are movable. The front bit moves with the side bit, but the side bit can move independently and side to side because of the transformation. leg can move out this far and can technically move further, but it moves the skirts because this is the same leg as before. If I'm using the correct knee joint, it can go back that far, and the foot is on this little hinge here, but you can see the other foot under it, so not really recommended, and it can bend forward and back like the drill showed as part of the transformation. So yeah, not a whole lot, but a decent enough amount considering the bulk of this figure. The waist is the same as before, it's just got the mask. I'm going to continue on. So the waist is the same as before, but it's got Stealth Gao behind it, so it's much more limited, and you got to be careful, otherwise you'll untab other stuff. I wish there were more locking mechanism type things in this. There are some nice locking mechanisms, especially Stealth Gao, but it's just not, it's not on for the head. Before I put on the mask, I'll just show the head. The head is attached to this wire, so you're kind of limited, although you could detach the ball joint there and get an unlimited movement out of the helmet. But basically you can get side to side, but it's stressed out, so would not recommend. Accessories in this mode, because there are accessories in this mode. You get the dividing driver, which is this massive weapon here. It is amazingly well detailed, actually. There's actual metal parts in this and an actual spring and piston system, which is amazing. I actually love that. That is incredible. But it connects onto here, and it needs the hand in a very specific position. I don't have it in that position because I don't care, so I'm just going to pop it out and connect the dividing driver where it's meant to be, instead of bothering with everything else. So, just see if I can get him into the iconic pose that he's meant to be in while he's got that. Looks pretty cool, but not really worth it. I am glad that he can hold it up without literally any issue. He's actually strong enough to hold that without anything going wrong, which is fantastic, because the tolerance and stuff like that I was a little worried about, especially if he's holding up metal pieces, even if they're not heavy, because he is just a hunk of plastic at the end of the day. And there are 2 more things to do before I cry myself to sleep about this model kit. So, reattach the hand. Next, you want to articulate it outwards like this, and it should be nice and easy. That was actually nice and easy. Fantastic. Next, you want to grab this part, and it recommends you assemble it when you do this part, but I don't think it really matters all that much. So this is apparently the Protect Shade, and you can't see it that well. There we go, the Protect Shade. And I'm guessing this is a defensive move from Gaogaigar. Let's see if I can get him into a more action stance. Okay, I know you can't really see him that well, but yeah. Basically looks like that, which is kind of cool. I like that, and I don't mind the way it attaches. But there is one other move that he can do, which doesn't matter about the it does matter about the articulation, but it's a cool bit of engineering for the articulation. So basically you move both of the hands, because this is when it gets really cool. Now he's got an ultimate move called Hell and Heaven. Basically, it requires both hands to collapse over the lion head and combine into this special move. And it's very cool and very dynamic, but there's a key part about this. He can't really reach over because of the lion head, but the lion head hides a unique part of articulation where these 2 bits can fold away to make room for the arm coming over here. And you can use that for regular articulation for action poses and things like that. So if I popped the dividing driver back on, you could get more action poses out of that, which is very cool. But do the same thing on the other side, where we move these out of the way and bend them. And then you can see he's in a bit of a collapsed in form, which is cool, and that should give me enough room to put on Hell and Heaven mode. And in this mode, they also recommend you flare out the vents on Stealth Gal, because that's meant to be more accurate to the show, but doesn't really matter. And you can see he's looking fantastic. The newly sculpted fingers are a lot thicker and look great. I wish he had alternate hands that weren't articulated, because then would have been a much better figure. Could have had a lot more fun with the articulation and things like that, and holding his weapons or any other accessories that he might get, like a certain alternate arm expansion pack that is advertised right here. So the Goldie Marg is a transformable extra arm for him with an insanely huge weapon, and I know it's got its own exclusive stand to hold it all up. There's also one last accessory I forgot about. This is an adapter piece to plug into the back of one of these arms to do a cool little rocket punch. And I like that, but I'm not going to do it, especially since I don't have the stand on hand to make that happen. But as it is now, he is a very cool figure. Really like him, but he is just annoying enough to bother me. Like, I cannot deny, this is awesome. This is amazing. This is what I wanted. I wanted a full combiner that could do stuff like fully move around, do all this crazy stuff, and combine without parts forming. Even though it is just a little bit of parts forming, it's still a little bit annoying and a little unfortunate, but generally it's fine. But I wanted something like this, a buildable combiner, which is great. And I just remembered one other thing. I didn't do size comparison. Well, he's like this because he's a big boy, but I forgot just how big. So he is next to HD Gundam Gremory, and you can see that because his legs are a bit collapsed, he's not as tall as he should be. So I'm just going to keep his arms like that for now. But yeah, he is a little taller than he was before, but his silhouette is so much bigger than it was. So you can definitely get a feel for how he is now. And again, there he is next to Wano Nico Robin WCF figure. So he is a big boy, but not anything insane. Like, he's just a little bit bigger, but his silhouette and frame is a lot better and a lot more solid, whereas the other one just looked like a plain Gundam sort of thing. There are plenty of panels to line and things like that on this kit, but I didn't do any of that. I just left it as is, and I'm pretty happy with that. The color separation makes it in such a way that you don't really need to bother. So I didn't really bother. And there's a nice finish on the parts already, so it doesn't look too plasticky, and everything is undergated, so it's pretty fantastic. Not a lot of extra effort you need to do. Generally, he is a good kit. I'm just a little bit at odds with him. I love the heft of the figure. I love the combination, even if it is annoying. It's just an incredible proof of concept. And even if I have no idea about the show itself, I can really appreciate this. And there is a bit of nostalgia for something that I never had. And I do appreciate what they've done here. And Bandai just continue to flex with their crazy engineering. Like, to make this all work, to make the Liner Gao somehow be a perfectly structured train and be able to slot in, then lock in, and then split and release these arms in a cool little like switch mechanic. It's just insane. I don't know how they thought of this, and I've seen reviews of the Chogokin of this, and it looked like it combined in the exact same way, which is incredible because they basically made a buildable version of an actual toy They actually trusted people to transform it and build it themselves. The way everything tucks behind the stealth Gao and gives a clean silhouette and everything, it's just so good. I love it. The only thing that's kind of dumb is the drills, but there's not a lot that they could have done with that. But yeah, it is actually an incredible build and an incredible experience. It's just annoying to actually deal with when you've got this combination mode, and it all comes down to this freaking head. Everything else, loose parts and stuff like that, I can deal with. But the way this works, because I'd normally glue in the mask, but you can't do that, because that ruins the rest of the combination. And if you want to take it apart, you can't really do that. So it's an annoying thing that you just need to accept is there. But other than that, this is an incredible build. If you just want to build something that is unlike anything else, just grab this kit. It is fantastic. But do what I do. Choose a pose, like this one, which is why we've ended on it, and leave it in that pose. This is how he's going to be for eternity, basically. Unless I get the Goldie Mug, in which case, yeah, he's going to change pose. But yeah, for now, this is how he's staying. And I'm happy with him like that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you all next time.